Hi, this is Jay here on behalf of the Bank Cannabis Genetics, and welcome to Seeds of Knowledge, an ongoing video series dedicated to bringing the knowledge and experience of professional growers to you, our fans. Today we're lucky enough to be joined by Rob Trotter, proprietor of Pot Zero. They have some really interesting cultivation techniques that we're going to talk about today. So welcome, Rob.
Thank you very much, Jay. It's my
Thank you for
pleasure
joining us today.
You bet.
So Pot Zero has been growing the bank's cannabis genetics for several years now, and I've had the honor of being a part of that, working with you on this and visiting your grow. And while I make it around to quite a few grows, to visit our various clients, I must say you guys really have something special up there. It's a truly unique setting and methodology. Could you maybe explain to our viewers a little bit about the Pot Zero concept and what all that entails?
Sure, absolutely. So all of our products are actually 100% green and 100% organic, and we feel the market is yearning for that. And especially when you look at the electrical consumption and the carbon that is being consumed in this industry, one example that I think is very interesting is a 1 gram joint grown inside is the equivalent of a 100-watt light bulb running for 17 hours.
Wow.
So that's why I decided to get on this mission. So our zero chemical concept is actually more than that. We're biodynamic because we have a cattle herd. We have about 35 Scottish Highlander cattle, and they are providing our nutrients. And in fact, just recently, they were in the plantation, and they cleaned up all of our stalks, all of the material from our last harvest. And of course, what happens is the material is recycled and comes out as nutrients. There's no waste. We're not filling up any dumpsters or anything. It's 100% waste-free recycling, and we get all our nutrients back.
Well, I think you've obviously set a fantastic example here, and I think growers across the country could all take a page from your book and try to refine their processes to be less damaging to the environment.
That's it. We can all do better, and we're going to just lead and point out what's going on and have fantastic products doing so.
So everything you need for this massive commercial cultivation operation is generated right there on site. Really, I think you just get the seeds from me and a couple other basic supplies. Cool. Everything else is right there on site. How do you manage all that?
Well, the good thing is we have the kind of the magical nutrients. We have fabulous soil, first of all. It's ancient soil that's been there forever. It's mountain loam soil full of minerals and nutrients, and it's unmolested. There's been no chemicals applied to that part of our property ever. Our water comes from a 12,000-foot mountain directly above our property. It does not run down any ditches or streamways downstream picking up contaminants. It is literally coming straight from the mountain right into our plantation. We have created a little tagline for that. We call it From Snow to Grow, and it is pretty cool because the snow is up there on the mountain and it comes down and turns into water and brings all our nutrients and oxygen and water to the roots.
Now, your grow has a very unique location that presents some very interesting challenges. Is it true that your grow is the highest elevation commercial cannabis cultivation operation here in the state of Colorado?
We believe it is. I don't know who is possibly licensed lately at another location. I can tell you I wouldn't personally want to be any higher. It is pretty strenuous at 8,200 feet. You have to have your head on a swivel because the weather changes rapidly. We've had 60-mile-an-hour winds. We have had torrential rains, and this year we had some interesting events set up, and that was 10 inches of snow on October 1st and 8 inches of snow on October 8th during our harvest, which presented a bit of a challenge, but then at the same time, it also helped to a degree with our plants getting stressed, and we've had some interesting results because of that. When you're laying in bed and it's snowing and you know it's going to snow about a foot, you're a little bit worried about your pot plantation.
I can only imagine.
and then what happened to us is, as the next day, all of this, it looked like a powder day. And the next day, we're out there and we realized that the plants were actually fine. And so we just said, time out on harvest, let them be, they're in a cocoon. And then a day and a half later, The snow came off the plants from a warm day, and we started back in, and we were just thrilled with how beautiful the plants actually were looking and how they smelt. We believe that the terpenes kind of just rose up because of that too. Your genetics are fantastic because they're really tough from seed with great stalks, great rooting, really important outside.
So at your location at 8,200 feet, there's a very shortened grow season. You tend to have late snows in the spring, very early snows in the fall, and that's definitely presented some very unique challenges to us on getting you set up with the right genetics that are going to finish on time. Can you talk a little bit about the sort of unique challenges that presents?
Well, absolutely. We have about a 5-month grow. We actually start about mid-April from your seeds, germinated. We mitigate all of the early season risk by keeping our seedlings in an enclosed environment, protected. It's in April, it's still winter at 8,200 feet. And we do not migrate our plants outside until usually the end of May, weather depending. And then they go into the ground right around the solstice, which is the 20th of June. And the biggest thing is trying to keep your eye on weather events because it still frosts in early June at 8,200 feet. And you have to get past that or your plants will actually be destroyed. So it's kind of tricky, but if you're kind of a MacGyver, you can figure out your way through it.
With your shortened season up there, we've obviously gotten a lot better at selecting the right genetics for you, and it definitely went a bit off the script. We initially, those first couple years, tried to pair you with strains that were finishing quickly for us indoors, but we noticed some interesting things up there and had to make some alterations. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Through the trial and error of using different strains, you start to understand several important factors. In a shortened season, you have to have strains that, in my opinion, the number one thing is that they have to understand when to trigger to go to flower. They have to trigger, in my location, around the 1st of August. If they do not, there will not be enough time to finish because in September, the frosts start coming. Indoors, you can flip the switch and cause the plant to change to flower. Outdoors, the plant has to have, in its evolution of its strain, it has to have the understanding of where it's at with the sun cycle. And around the 1st of August, well, the 5th of August, you're halfway between the solstice and the equinox. And that's about 14 hours a day. And if the plant doesn't switch then, it's probably going to fail. Once the plants are actually into flower and the cold weather comes, they're kind of protected by their own hormonal activity. They're kind of enraged. And then the other thing is they're starting to pump cannabinoids. And I personally believe that the oil that is coming up through the plants is kind of a protective antifreeze as you get into the more difficult weather that happens in September and early October at our location.
So between all of the unique aspects of your environment, we saw some really interesting results in the cannabinoid profile this year. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, actually extremely spectacular and a miracle, really. The rarest cannabinoids have showed up in large quantities in our cannabinoid profiles. We have CBG, we have CBC, and we have THCV, which are literally the most desired medical cannabinoids known to man.
Well, and for those of our fans that don't know a whole lot about the way cannabinoids are synthesized within the plant, CBG is the sort of precursor cannabinoid that gets converted into everything else. So you've got this, CBG is the first thing that's produced, then these synthases come in and turn that CBG into either THC or CBD or THCV, whatever else it may be. Now, usually when we get a lab result back that shows some small amount of CBG, that would indicate to us that things had perhaps been harvested early. But normally when we see that, the CBG never builds beyond 1 or 2% and then it gets converted. Now you had some results that absolutely blew me away. Can you talk about just how high the peaks in your CBG content were?
Correct. We have THC results ranging from 20 to 29, which is fantastic. But we kind of believe that because of the environment, the weather, the cold conditions, the intense ultraviolet light, the nutrients, I think that's a very big factor, that as the plants were finishing, they loaded themselves with their N cannabinoids, but then they got into kind of a suspended animation where they actually kept producing CBG and also CBC and THCV. And in fact, we have results of like 29% THC and 3% CBG, and that's pretty well unheard of.
And I mean, your total cannabinoid content is just through the roof.
Right. Yes. And what's very cool is it's in the flower. It's in our flower. It's in lower concentrations than it would be in a concentrate. But we have concentrated some of our materials so far, and you are ending up with THC profiles around 70%, but then you get a 6 to 7% CBG kicker, and then you get a 1 to 2% THCV kicker or CBC, depending on the strain. And so, very spectacular cannabinoid profile.
So Rob, your grow has definitely served us well as a really good learning platform. I know if I can get a strain to thrive in your environment, when we take it down to one of these grows that have less restrictive environments, that it is really going to kick butt. Can you talk a little bit about the strains that are really, really thriving in your environment? Yes,
absolutely. Some of the best strains that we have, decided on, obviously, Axilla. This is where we've got, 26% THC, 3% CBG, 29% THC, 3% CBG. Axilla is a phenomenal plant. They thrived, they loved it there. Bubba did very well this year, just straight Bubba. And then your Java did fantastically. And that had actually fantastic results for us on the CBG side with, up to 4%.
Wow.
Then your Orange Crush crushed it because we have, results of 24% THC and then still the CBG and some THCV and CBC.
So with our genetics, you guys, I know you guys wholesale these flowers. You also have a number of different products. Can you kind of talk to us about some of those?
Well, we have our flower of all those strains, and then we have a CO2 hash oil, a raw hash oil with the terpenes reintroduced. There's no distillation, so you get absolutely all of the cannabinoids. So the concentrate is right now in our CO2 cartridges, and we're working on some other ways to put our concentrate out to the marketplace, and that'll be coming around the corner soon.
Well, that's about all the time we have today on Seeds of Knowledge. A big thank you to Rob Trotter of Pot Zero for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Jay. You're the best.
Anybody that'd like to learn more about Pot Zero, their processes and their product offerings can find a link to their website in the video description below. If you're looking to try any of Pot Zero's products, you can find them on the shelves of any of the clinic's Denver area dispensary locations. Thank you for joining us today on Seeds of Knowledge, and keep growing.
Thank you.